Hello and welcome to the Indie Beginning podcast. This week we spoke to James Wymore about his tale Theocracide and character development traps. If you missed last week's episode where Marie introduced Theocracide, head back to episode 42. He has a great take on discovery writing and some sound advice for those who have always wanted to write, but felt it isn't practical. Stay tuned after the episode for a message from Marie and myself about the future of Indie Beginning podcast and ACNBooks. As always, this show is brought to you by Shirts by Sarah. Head over to shirtsbysarah.com and find the shirt that brings out the character in you. Alright, so let's read some reviews. Who's up first, Marie?
Sharon. Theocracide is a beautifully written and perfect dystopian premise for our age. My only criticism is that I wish the plot moved a little faster. He spends a lot of time world building and does it well, but it took a while to get to the inciting incident that started Jason on his journey. On the whole, I highly recommend this book to all fans of sci-fi and dystopia.
Yeah, as sci-fi fantasy books go, it takes a lot of time to just get them started. So if it's the first in a series or just a solo book, it is going to take a little bit of time to get started. Mm-hmm. Charity said, Wymore spins a great tale of one man's journey from half awake to fully cognizant of his world situation, and his decisions no longer affect just his life. He digs into real issues humanity needs to come to grips with. Our dependence on entertainment, computers, governments to tell us what to do, think, eat, etc. If we don't watch where we're headed, we will end up complacent gearheads that live solely for the next video, feed, game, whatever, and lose the things that really make up life. Friendship, touch, sight, smell, truth, and wisdom.
Yeah, that's a perfect description of the book. Andrew says, if you're looking for a thrilling sci-fi adventure that beautifully mirrors current real-world issues and advancements, then this is the book for you. Go get it now. Why are you still reading this?
Thea says, it's not often that I get the privilege of reading really great science fiction. There's ample amounts of terrible and mediocre science fiction out there, but so seldom do you see anything that might just be as readable a century from now as it is today. Theocracide really shines on its treatment and relevant modern-day issues, plotting and character development. In a way, it felt a lot like Ender's Game in terms of levels of intrigue and depth, but without all the stupid little geniuses. So what did you think of the story, Marie?
I'm really happy that it kind of fell in our laps. It's going to be the next book purchase that I'm allowed after I finish my pile.
I thought it was a great idea. A lot of the times we read stories about virtual reality, and this is more augmented reality. But virtual reality, everybody's sitting in their rooms addicted to these little VR glasses. In James's story, people go out into the world and they just decide that, well, I don't want to see those dirty buildings, so I project something else over that image. Mm-hmm. I do see it as, like Charity mentioned in her review, how will we as a society, treat the world that we can simply just ignore from now on? How do we meet, love, evolve? I mean, if you can just plant something over just something ugly, you don't fix the ugly.
Right.
Marie spoke to James recently.
Yeah, I mentioned that I got really sucked into the levels of sci-fi. I'm a huge sci-fi fanatic. It gives you everything from Ready Player One vibe with the games to a V for Vendetta with the Undying Emperor. What works, if any, I asked him, did you draw inspiration when developing your characters?
Although I don't remember drawing characters specifically from any one work, the whole feel of the book, and by extension the feel of the characters, was drawn largely from Kurt Vonnegut's Blackbeard and from Ray Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. The characters in those books feel very real to me. They are just average people doing their everyday thing, but they get thrown into exceptional circumstances. And I really related to them. I really felt like I could understand their world and their plight, their problems, and what they were trying to do. And so I think in trying to make this book feel like those, I think I tended to make the characters along those same lines, where I wanted them to feel like just everyday characters, everyday people that one might know, but in a circumstance that was different, so that it did a good job of really playing off the world that they live in and highlighting how any normal person would be in that circumstance.
So yeah, the feel came from Kurt Vonnegut's Blackbeard and Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. He likes average relatable characters, just like anybody else we'd know, that just get thrown into extraordinary situations. And I personally think that that's what people are looking for.
It's more relatable. They
Right.
can put themselves in the main character's shoes.
Right. Well, speaking of characters, she asked James if he could share some of his character development process.
I'm sad to admit that my character development process is not very sophisticated. Most of my writing is done as a discovery writer, and that book especially was heavily discovery written. So I kind of came upon the characters as they entered the story. I didn't really put a lot of planning into most of the secondary characters. The main characters, of course, I had in my head before I started, but I didn't really set out to make them like a certain person or to have them, display certain traits. Just as the story unfolded, the characters just kind of gave away who they were by their actions and the way they talked and the things that they cared about. Secondary characters, I had a bit of an advantage in this book because everybody's wearing these computer glasses that are hyper augmented realities. So whatever they see is based on a program they chose. And so I think it gives a little bit of insight into each character, how they see the world, the way they choose to overlay pictures or games or movies right in front of the stuff that is around them. And what they choose to see has a kind of an insight. And so the structure of the story helped make those characters feel a little bit more fleshed out as far as being able to see what they like right away visually without having to, describe it or go through a conversation or something.
He says his process is not very sophisticated. He is a discovery writer. But there is a kind of sophistication to being a discovery writer.
Yeah, to get characters introduced and fleshed out. Even as a discovery writer, it takes talent that many don't have. I mean, the characters are just coming in. You got to figure out how they fit into that situation. Whereas somebody like me who sits back and tries to pre-plan everybody, try to have everybody's history, I know how they got there before they got there.
Mm-hmm.
We have spoken about pantsing before, and I had to take down the episode because of audio
conflicts.
Yeah. But like I said in that episode, I can't pants.
And I can't write the way you do. I kind of like not knowing where things are going. It keeps it more interesting to write for me.
Yeah. So Marie also asked James, what traps did he try to avoid?
The truth is, I'm always very afraid of creating a character that will come off as a stereotype. With reference to the Undying Emperor, for those of you who haven't read the book, he is someone who claims to have lived over 240 years. He's currently ruling America, which he took over long, long ago. And there's a kind of religion centered around the fact that he never dies. And everybody's expected to not only believe in, but to follow everything he says. And so he's kind of the theocrat that runs this society. And I didn't really... I mean, there's tons of stereotypes about immortals, like vampires and such. But because of his unique nature, I found I didn't really need to spend too much time preventing him from being similar to what other people had read before. Without giving away very much of the story, he has a very unique situation that drives him. And just like anyone in government, he really has other powerful forces that are controlling him. And so he he's more of a regular kind of person put into an extraordinary circumstance. And that's the template that I use to build him, which makes him not so much a stereotype as a unique person, or a regular person dealing with a unique situation. Jay and Jason both have similar situations. They could easily have fallen into a kind of cardboard cutout character from any action adventure movie, but I feel like their relationship with each other strongly defined their personalities, and by bringing that in, you get a picture of Jason where he's actively seeking to hide a huge secret in his life. He's working to keep other people from knowing what he knows about himself. And that causes him to overcompensate and to be more social and more careful all the time. And that, over time, is naturally going to sculpt a certain kind of personality. So he flowed out of his circumstances. And Jay, who is Jason's father, he was just a really fun character to build. Because of his situation, he became very paranoid, and he spends a lot of time working on conspiracy theories and things like that. And that quirk made him very unique and interesting, at least to me as a writer, and hopefully to readers, because he doesn't match the standard person in this society.
I also asked James what he wishes he would have known before writing Theocracide.
I think if I could go back and tell myself one thing, it would be to believe in writing, believe in art, believe in it long before I did, because I felt like I needed to be responsible and get a job and all of those standard things that everybody does. And so I really put off writing for a long time. And I sometimes think if I had made more time for it, or made it a focus of my life earlier on, it would have been even better for me, because, more time doing what you love is never a bad thing. I also feel like it's important to trust your ideas. People often say, write what you love. Well, those things you love, that's what you need to trust in. You need to be willing to explore them and express them, instead of maybe looking for something you think other people are going to like, or trying to write something that just flows out of another world that another author created. Although fan fiction is fine, and copying is the sincerest form of flattery, the truth is, the sooner that you break free and really believe in your own ideas and believe in your own creativity, that's when you start to be able to do something amazing. And I don't know if it's just a confidence boost or if it's more of a shift of priorities. I don't feel bad about waiting until I was older to get serious about writing and publishing, but it seems that a lot of people, when they're young especially, they don't really look at it as a viable or a realistic life path. And maybe everybody needs a day job and you can just write on the side, but I feel like there were a lot of years I could have invested into writing that I shied away from it for no good reason, except that I felt like it wasn't a sure thing. I didn't for sure know that I was going to get a paycheck from it or anything like that. And that's not really necessary in life at the very beginning most of the time. It's worth trying something different and something exciting. And I wish I knew, before I started this adventure, I wish I knew that discipline is really key. If you just want to paint once in a while, you can paint. But if you discipline yourself and really produce a lot of work, you get the skills built that that puts you in a category of a much higher level of painter. And the same thing is true with writing. It takes a long time to write a book. So the sooner you jump in and get writing, the better you'll be. Ray Bradbury said you have to write 1 million words before you find your voice. So that's probably something like 10 books. And I wrote all those books, but I could have written them sooner if I had had the confidence or just the know-how to really commit to the art.
We've heard this so many times. Don't put off writing. Create the work that you love and don't write for other people's interests. If you are interested, there are millions of other people that are interested too. Write, write, write. And the story will come. Theocracide is available on Amazon. Remember to leave a review for this story after you finish it. Reviews are one of the best and cheapest ways to support an author. Reviews are also great for podcasters too. Please leave a 5-star review for the Indie Beginning podcast wherever you found us. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, there is some news. Indie Beginning podcast will be taking a break during the beginning of the next year.
Yeah, Ben and I are working on turning ACNBooks into a one-stop site for indie authors. We don't want to give away all the details, but we hope to help jumpstart the careers of many up-and-coming authors. We feel that it's better to put Indie Beginning on hold for a bit, as we can not give our full undivided attention to the authors and their work while we update ourselves. Thanks for the amazing season 1. We made some good friends and plan to be back soon.
And as always, remember to read more books,
Be the best possible you.
and simply enjoy this wonderful life. Thanks for listening.